We're recording. Welcome to the Papi and the Wildman show number 4. Say hello, Papi.
For life.
NWO, for life. So I had a friend who said she liked the gyro stories that are actually about our life experiences. So for this Papi and the Wildman podcast, we're going to share stories that are about our life experiences. In the summer, when I was in middle and high school, we would go on vacations with my dad. We went to a lot of bowl games and wrestling events. And during the summer, we created this event called poolside dancing. Care to share about poolside dancing?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
PSD, right?
PSD.
Which stands for...
And then we'd give the years, right? What was the years? Like PSD 2005.
Yeah, okay, so we were at like a Motel 6, and we were watching, in like some extreme sports, like some ESPN extreme sports, I don't know. And we decided we're going to create our own extreme sport at poolside. So so I'm not going to name who was there, but I was there, my dad was there, and I would dance by poolside and then jump into the pool, and it was a competition who could dance and jump into the pool better. My dad did these sensational, like joke-like, commentary, kind of like a professional wrestling commentator. It was exaggerated over the top. It was quite comedic. There's actually videotapes of it. I don't know if it's ever been transferred over to digital, but it would be interesting to do that. Do you still have the cassette tapes of poolside dancing?
Yeah, we have to transfer them over. Can you do that from the tape?
For some reason your video went off, but can I transfer over from tape? Yes, I can transfer over from tape. You could probably bring it to a photography studio, or you could bring it to a camera shop, or like even like B&H in New York City or Best Buy, and just say, I have, analog like cassette tape, and I want to turn it into a digital format, because, these cassette tapes and analog tapes, they deteriorate. Digital is a good way to preserve it forever.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, you know what? I think that should be done. And you know what? During this pandemic, I should start looking for those tapes also now.
Right.
I have time to do that.
Can you think of any other like fun like stories like poolside dancing? So give your take on poolside dancing. Like what was your impression? Like I described poolside dancing from my perspective now. Describe poolside.
Oh yeah, well poolside dancing was a competition where like the individuals would stand at the edge of the pool and do a dance and sing a song a little bit, or just kind of get into the dancing routine. And then they would then when a participant was done, then they would dive into the pool, and then the next person would come up and not do the same dance, but do their own interpretation of dance. And then I would rate it. And like Wildman said, I would do commentary during the dances also. And at the end of the competition, someone has to win. And the person who actually lost the competition of poolside dancing would have to leave the pool and do the walk of shame.
Yeah, right. So if you lost the poolside dancing competition, you had to do a walk of shame back to the hotel room, and we would record you while you were doing the walk of shame.
And of course, while the person was doing the walk of shame, we would, the winner and of course myself, we would not harass, but we would mock the person for losing at poolside dancing
in a playful, loving kind of way.
Okay,
so we also had people come over to us, like such as the lifeguard, who we dubbed Cheddar. He like a Cheddar came over to us while we were doing poolside dancing, and he said to us, "I'm trying to make some cheddar with my rap CD." He was a rapper. Actually, I mean, he was like Eminem, kind of like an M rapper, and he was trying to make some cheddar with his rap CD. And so from that point on, we dubbed him Cheddar. he was wondering what we were doing, and we were like, poolside dancing. We're doing poolside dancing. Don't you understand? It's like an MTV Extreme Sports kind of thing. He didn't really grasp what poolside dancing was, but then again, he was in his own little world with his, CD. So I mean,
But the other people who were actually using the pool too, they were quite fascinated by our antics and what we were doing, and that was always good too, to watch the reaction of the other people. Like, what are they doing? Yeah, it was. We put on quite a scene.
And the final presentation that my dad had a friend, I'm not going to name names, but we go to his house towards the end of the vacations, and we would show him the cassette tape of poolside dancing. His observations were pretty funny. I think he made a joke once, like, "You guys were sober when you did this," and you're like, "Oh yeah, we were completely sober." And it was kind of like funny in a way, because it was like, yeah, it was poolside dancing. He had the funny,
And even before the competitions, we would cut promos of what it was all about, individually prior to the event, and that always led for some good entertainment as well.
Right. It was it was sensational. It was like a professional wrestling promo. It was like it was kind of like professional wrestling meets extreme sports meets ballroom dancing meets, I don't know. So that was pretty much poolside dancing.
Oh yeah, but it was yeah, definitely fun for all. I mean, it was definitely a good way to entertain, a good way to bond. Also, it was a good bonding experience. And of course, neither one of the participants would want to lose the competition and do the walk of shame.
No, nobody wants to do the walk of shame. That's what it ain't. Okay, so yesterday I went to Arthur, the greatest barber in the existence of humanity, for a haircut. I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed that you're well coiffed today.
Right. I was kind of, for a long time I had the coronavirus hair. I went months of no, just growing my hair in like a 1960s hippie rocker. And it was starting to look wild. I mean, my friends said I looked handsome even with the long, wild hair, the wild man hair. But I look more handsome and professional, and I kind of look like Mr. Businessman. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, so was Arthur there? Or Haircutter A, was he there yesterday?
Haircutter A was indeed there, and I wore my mask, and he wore his mask and gloves, and hopefully nobody comes down with corona. I think everything was good. I sanitized my hands. I took the precautions. I needed the haircut, so obviously, hopefully everything is good. Hopefully everything's rainbows and butterflies. Corona is quite scary.
Very good. Now, did he say, was he open, or how long has he been open since the pandemic?
I think he said since June 10th. Right now it's June 25th. So I think he said, 14 days. So.
Oh, good. And I'm sure he's gotten a lot of people too, because a lot of people will need the cut.
Yeah, he said during the months where he wasn't open, he still had to pay rent, which was quite pricey. And that unfortunately, if you're a barber, you have to pay rent. It gets busy, and it is what it is. I mean,
not just the barber, but like all the businesses too. I mean, even like the restaurants, and I mean, if they don't open, the landlord is still expecting them to pay rent on that premises.
Exactly.
That's why it's so important to get the businesses back up and running again.
You want to do the businessman story? When I was in elementary school, my mom used to like to get me dressed up for picture day. So I would get really buttoned down shirts, ties, and I looked really handsome. I looked like a cute, adorable little boy. So, the other kids, or one kid in particular, called me businessman in a mocking kind of way. And when I came home, my dad was like, "Is that really an insult? A businessman? That's like a compliment." Because he was complimenting me in a way. But, sometimes it all boils down to how they compliment you. If it's done in a malicious...
I guess to kids, being a businessman was not the cool thing to do.
Well, he was a bully. He was a bully who was trying to just put me down and be malicious. But Yeah,
And that's not what it. That's what it ain't.
that's what it ain't. Yeah, I had quite a lot of problems with bullies growing up. If you don't know, I mean, I obviously Poppy knows. I'm talking to the audience in particular, and but yeah, I mean, but like that's kind of a silly example of somebody bullying you. I mean, being a businessman isn't an insult. It's not like he was calling you like, you know, sleazy guy. You know what I mean? He was calling you businessman. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Businessmen make money. Businessmen, I majored in business at Stony Brook. I mean, a businessman is something people strive to be. It's not like he was calling me like, guy with no money, man.
Something bad.
Something bad, right? So that's the businessman story. Do you have any other weird stories that we could potentially share?
Oh, gee. I mean, it seems like we all did a lot of weird things, but all of it was all in good fun and such too. But we'd always find strange people along our trips and such. Like the one time when we were in Philadelphia, and some guy
let's talk about, actually, if you're unfamiliar with John Spano, he was a businessman who bought the Islanders. And there was the fisherman jersey. Okay, I want to talk about how we were in the ESPN documentary with protesting the fisherman jersey for the New York Islanders, the hockey team. Let's try to describe this in a radio broadcaster kind of way. Okay, so when I was in elementary school, the Islanders had this fisherman logo jersey. It's based on a Billy Joel song about a fisherman. It's like it looks like the Gorton Fisherman. It's like the worst logo ever. It was like a marketing idea to like, let's change the Islander logo, the classic vintage Islander logo, to a fisherman jersey. It's going to sell a lot of jerseys. It's going to be successful for our organization. And it was a disaster, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, here's a team with a classic logo. It's been the team's logo since day one, and like new management comes in and they're crazed, and the first thing they do is change the logo and change the jersey, and they go from the traditional circle with the Islander jersey to this fisherman, and as Wildman said, he looked like the Gorton Fisherman, and it was just, people thought it was a joke to begin with, and they weren't joking. I mean, they actually changed the logo for a year and a half to this fisherman, and at the same time, it just management wasn't really taking care of the team and such. So there was a rally before one of the games at the Coliseum in the parking lot. And the rally was going to just for the fans to speak up and protest that the direction of the team wasn't going as well. It's kind of like protest. It's kind of like what's going on today without the violence.
Exactly. So if you watch the John Spano documentary, which took, John Spano was a con man who bought the team. So if you watch the John Spano documentary, you see a young version of myself. We had two posters. One that said was the fisherman logo. It said "Team Overboard," and the other one was like a fisherman logo, and it said, "It's Stan Fischler." Hey, it's Stan Fischler, who's like the broadcast.
But I drew his Stan Fischler's glasses on the fisherman, and the fisherman actually did look just like Stan Fischler,
right?
Who was at the time, Stan Fischler is a famous New York reporter, announcer. And he's a famous person who covered hockey for, well over 50 years in the New York area. So, but he had a distinctive look too. He looked like the Gorton's Fisherman, and he wore these black rim glasses. And I transposed those glasses onto the logo, and the poster, the banner said, "Hey, look, it's Stan Fischler," And Andy carried that banner, correct?
No, I carried Team Overboard. I was actually embarrassed, ashamed to.
Oh, that's right.
And actually, speaking of Andrew being a little embarrassed, cramping the style, let's go into Chicks Dig the Long Ball. There was a commercial on ESPN.
Oh wait, but you have to finish the story. The so the two guys, the two boys were I can say boys, right? The two boys had
in elementary school. Yeah, it was when I was in elementary school.
There
So
was
boys.
the two posters, and the when the fans saw those posters, they went crazy. They went nuts. They thought they were the best things ever, and a film crew, or I guess one of the Islanders broadcast, they actually filmed what was happening outside, and they were intrigued and enamored by the posters also, and they actually videotaped the Stan Fischler poster and showed it during the game when Stan Fischler was doing his commentary, in between the periods, and everybody in the booth and everything, including Stan Fischler, just got a full guffaw over the whole Islander mascot looking like Stan Fischler, but which I thought was quite crazy, because if you looked at the Fisherman logo, there was no way you couldn't look at that logo and say to yourself, wow, that looks just like Stan Fischler. And for them never to have noticed that was quite bizarre. I mean, to me, it was quite bizarre.
It was a very interesting observation, and it got us on TV for the Spano documentary, and at the time during a hockey game. So we got
right.
some.
And then years later, ESPN did a documentary on Spano, and they showed clips of the banners that appeared in the documentary as well.
Right. Okay. So I introduced Chicks Dig the Long Ball. Let's describe it. So you want to tell the story about Chicks Dig the Long Ball?
Yeah. There was a famous commercial on TV, and it had to do with the players from the Atlanta Braves, and I forget what the product was. It was too long ago, but basically, it had to do with I guess people winning like home run awards and such, and these Atlanta pitchers were just winning like Cy Youngs, and nobody really cared about the Cy Young, the pitching awards. Everybody wanted to like all the fans and stuff wanted to be with the person who was hitting the home runs and had all the glory. So there's a couple of pitchers on the staff at the time, and
let me take. So basically, my dad was shouting at these two players, "Chicks Dig the Long Ball," and my brother and I got very embarrassed. And because my dad was and the players acknowledged my dad, or maybe they didn't acknowledge my dad, but my dad was shouting at the players during a vacation when we were at a baseball game, "Chicks Dig the Long Ball." And then like a few moments later, maybe a half hour later, or I don't know, somebody had a sign in the crowd that "Chicks Dig the Long Ball." Everybody was pointing at the sign saying, "Oh, that's what he was saying," or whatever. And my dad was kind of like ahead of the times. He was saying "Chicks Dig the Long Ball" long before it even appeared on the Jumbotron, so to speak.
And plus, that was when we were in Toronto. So mostly everybody in that stadium never saw the commercial, because obviously Canada commercials are a lot different than American commercials.
Right. Yeah. So this is something that happened. So another memorable event that we went to, obviously, do you want to get into John Spano, or do you want to leave the John Spano documentary alone?
Oh, go right ahead.
Because I don't know if people will actually be interested in this, but we'll describe it anyway. So John Spano was a businessman, or a businessman. Businessman. I'm a businessman. But John Spano was a businessman who had no money. He literally didn't have any assets to buy a hockey team, but he duped, Gary Bettman and the higher ups in the NHL that he had money. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And basically he was able to buy the Islanders as a con man. Eventually he was found out and went to jail, but basically it just further explain the Islanders as the joke team they are. Even your owner is a con man and doesn't have any money, basically, right?
Yeah, but no, he was vetted through the league and stuff, and he was vetted through a lot of the other owners within the hockey league, and he didn't just con the Islanders. He conned the entire league who passed on his who researched him and said, yeah, the guy was legit when he actually wasn't.
That's like a common theme that you try to say, like, act like you belong and people won't ask questions. For example, my dad would, often sneak into hockey games by, saying to the people, the staff, I belong here, I'm a part of the team. And, if you act like you belong and you people don't ask questions. They just assume you're a part. You know what I mean? So like, explain your act like you belong here philosophy.
Yeah, I mean that's it entirely. I mean, like Madison Square Garden, they just automatically assumed I belonged there, and I never gave them the impression that I didn't. So it was it was a lot different back in the day, as people say.
Right. Prior to September 11th, you were able to get into arenas relatively simple, according to my dad, because it kind of reminds me, like, remember going to the Wayne Gretzky game? We snuck in. I was kind of like a little upset about that because, I felt like we were
that was Wayne Gretzky's last game that he played in the NHL.
I felt like we were doing something mischievous and wrong. My dad was saying, lots of people sneak into these kind of events. So it's kind of like Pink Floyd's "The Lunatic Is on the Grass," where it's kind of like, you're bending the rules. A lot of people sneak into games. You know what I mean? It's kind of like one of those deals. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It wasn't.
It was innocent.
Yeah, it wasn't a criminal offense, but
a lot of people wanted to see
right.
Wayne Gretzky's last game at the Madison Square Garden. We snuck in and we got to see his last game. We left actually early because I didn't feel comfortable in the arena. But
yeah, we didn't stay to the end. But we were there to witness the Gretzky, the great one,
the great Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
Do you have any other examples of act like you belong and people don't ask questions? I'm trying to think.
No, I think we covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah, act like you belong and people don't ask questions. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's plenty of examples, but I can't.
And that's stuff that we can bring up for another podcast.
Right. I guess that is what it is. Papi and the Wildman podcast number 4 done.